Hey ladies, and welcome back to the Rooted Mama podcast. So today I'm sitting down with a returning guest from season 1, someone whose work is making a real impact in the lives of first-time moms. She's a Houston-based doula, and she's the founder of Maternity Journey, where she helps guide women through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. This is the kind of support that every new mom deserves. And what makes her perspective so valuable is that she works closely with those young, single, first-time moms, the women who often come into pregnancy not knowing much about the process or what to expect in motherhood. In this episode, we dive into what the typical first-time mom looks like, how she helps her clients prepare for birth and postpartum, and why the real work of motherhood begins before conception, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So if you're thinking about motherhood, preparing for pregnancy, or just wanting a deeper understanding of what it really takes to step into this journey with confidence, this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Rooted Mama, the podcast where motherhood meets wisdom, support, and empowerment. I'm Destiny, a mother on a mission to help women embrace a healed and fulfilling version of motherhood. Whether you're planning for your first baby, navigating pregnancy, or already deep in the parenting journey, each episode features real conversations with women in every stage of motherhood, insights from experts, and practical tips to help you feel grounded and confident. Hi, Kelli.
Hey, Destiny.
I'm happy to have you back on for sure.
Yes, I'm glad you invited me because it was a surprise. I felt a little nervous, but I was like, okay, I'm welcome. So, yes, a lot has shifted since the last time that we talked, but
Yeah,
I think these types of conversations um, keep my motivation high. They keep it
yeah.
up here. So, I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah. So we were kind of like chatting before I hit record about the changes that you are making or have made. But I think it's important to kind of talk about what your role has been. When I met
Mhm.
you, you were working as a doula and you had a program that you were kind of working under called the Kinsey Keeper program. And
Mhm.
we did talk about it in the last podcast, but just in case this is like someone's first time, would you mind
Mhm.
kind of just explaining what a doula is, what they do, and then talking
Yeah.
about that program that I've met you under?
Yeah, of course. Well, I am a doula. I'm a birth and postpartum doula. Doulas in general, I like to put us more in the category of birth work because there's so many lines of work that you can do as a doula. But I'm a birth and postpartum doula, so we connected because I was supporting your birth. And as a birth doula, we support the mom emotionally, we support her physically, but I think my favorite component is supporting her with education and giving her the tools that she needs to be more confident so that she can birth her way. And that's really what it's all about as a birth doula is supporting the mother, mothering the mother, and nurturing her to be able to see the strength that she has within to be able to bear and bring life and heal from that experience. So I support women through that journey. And I think another element of birth work is just uh, something that I've heard a lot of people say, like they believe that, there's a certain type of birth that you can have a doula for, and that's not true. Like I said, we're here to
Mm,
mother the mother, and however she decides to birth and wherever she decides to birth, we're supporting that. So I know that there are some doulas that have preferences for the types of births that they support, but in a nutshell, we're there to support birth. That
mm,
is what it is. Okay. So that includes physically being there for the labor, helping her cope with labor. That includes, helping her to advocate during labor. Um, and that also includes just helping her with that transition into motherhood and that fourth trimester. And usually that's when the birth doula kind of transitions out with supporting the mom, but in my case, we might transition over to
Mm-hmm.
postpartum work. And postpartum work is another window within itself in the journey of motherhood. And for me, my postpartum work, it was more focused on that fourth trimester and helping her transition so that she can get back to work or she can get back to, you know, homeschooling or whatever that looked like for her. Um, but some lines of work, it kind of carries over to being a professional nanny, but those are
Mm.
not the same thing. We're not the same thing. We are primarily supporting the family, supporting the mom in whatever area she needs to help her throughout that sensitive healing period. Okay,
Mm.
but in the Kinsey Keeper program. So in my journey as a doula, I did start off, more independently, but that was never like the intention. The overall vision was for it to be more of a community organization where I'm supporting those that, may not be in a position to pay or expend on a doula to
Mm-hmm.
attend their birth, but they're in a situation where they are the women that are facing those disparities and they would benefit from having a doula present. So that is where the Kinsey Keeper program was born. It is in honor of my late niece, Kenzea. My sister was a teen mom, and she needed a doula. So I feel like this is my way of keeping her name here in this natural realm, but also supporting young moms. And so the program itself is for young first time single moms, and they are able to apply for complimentary care. We did introduce a sliding scale rate, so we have affordable rates for those that may not meet the complimentary requirements,
Mm.
but that is where it all started with Destiny. And so she's a Kinsey keeper. So shout out to you. And yeah, the program is still flourishing. We started Maternity Journey in 2018. We were rolling out the program at that time, but it wasn't what it is today until 2020.
Mm.
So since then, we've been serving families, and we had to, place some things on pause because, our collective was on different paths. But now we are happy to reintroduce the Kinsey Keeper program to the Houston area. And so, if you are a mom who has an estimated birth date of April 2025 and beyond, then you are able to apply. So, I will share those details with Destiny, and then she can look
Yes,
it up.
yes.
But
So I already
yeah.
have I have someone in mind already that I need to talk to you about off air.
Okay. For
But
sure, for sure.
yes, but you said a couple of things, and one of the questions that I had that someone might be wondering is how much would a doula typically cost? So, like, obviously, you're saying this program is offering complimentary services,
Hmm.
but why would a mother need something like this, like support in this area?
Well, it's
It's
kind
so
of
hard
sticky
to
for me to
say,
talk
right?
about that.
It's
Yeah,
hard to
because
say.
it's a growing line of work.
Yeah.
And when I first started, it looked a lot different than what it is now. But I can give a range
Yeah.
because, again, each birth worker has their own practice. So, they may be just inspired to do community birth work and they may not charge the competitive rates.
Mm.
Um, and then you might have some that solely work under an agency. And so you're paying the agency rates. And then you have some that are independent. But for those independent birth workers, I see that they are charging now anywhere from 1,200 to $1,800,
Okay.
and that's for the physical labor support. But it also includes like your prenatal visits and a few postpartum visits, and some of them have other trades and offerings that they give, and that can include like prenatal massage or placenta encapsulation or lactation specialty. So there's a lot of tools that can be included in that package, but or benefits rather that can be included in that package that go along with the value of that investment.
Well, I am so happy to have you here because I feel like because you were often working with first time moms, you have this unique experience and a unique
Mhm.
perspective specifically around those women who are coming into motherhood for the first time.
I'll say why, that's at least in my walk, I've learned that, some people just want to do it because they see that it's trending,
Mm,
but they may not necessarily, take advantage of all of the benefits that come from that support because, they're doing it like to meet that trend need, or they're
mm,
doing it because, okay, I want to be able to, have everything that I need to get the birth that I'm, shooting for. But I think that the line of work that I do is more rewarding, and it offers more value to the first time mom. So the mom who, again, like you
mm-hmm,
said, she she's walking into motherhood. She may have some experience with pregnancy, maybe with her family or her friends or things like that. But she is not really knowledgeable about the ins and outs of pregnancy, the ins and outs of labor and birth, and what it's like to care for a newborn. So she would benefit from the education, from the tips, from the physical labor support. But more importantly, I feel that, a young mom who, or not necessarily a young mom, but a mom who is considered a single mother and she is gonna possibly be birthing alone, those are like the moms that I feel should prioritize, doula support. Um,
mm-hmm.
and more specifically, the moms that maybe they have a support person, but their support person is not knowledgeable about it, or maybe they're a second time mom, and the first time they felt like they didn't have the support that they needed, and so they need somebody to, be their voice or be their ear and really, again, cater to their needs. That's somebody that I feel would greatly benefit in prioritizing a doula. But
Mm,
I think that just in general, like when you're facing something so fresh, so new, and so life altering, like pregnancy and motherhood, like having a professional there that has, the inside scoop, if you will, on, what this world looks like could really be, the difference in her experience. It
mm,
can be the difference in her walking through it blindly and walking through it confidently.
yeah.
So
That
that's my take.
what is the typical level of understanding about pregnancy and birth and like breastfeeding and stuff that you walk into with these women?
Love that question. So I find that I've been aligned with a lot of single, young, first time, or maybe it's her second time, but she's still single, type of women, or women that are, displaced from their family. Like they came out here to work or to go to school, and their family's in a whole nother state, and they don't have that support system. I typically align with those women. The level of education that they typically have, I usually, in my notes, whenever you ask me that question, I was like, oh, I already know how to answer this. So in my notes, usually when I get like a new client, I ask them, I'm like, okay, so what do you know about pregnancy already? What do you know about birth? And half of the time it's, well, nothing, or it's painful and that I'm gonna need an epidural, and that
Mm,
my body's gonna get bigger, and all these different things, like they say, just like the general things that you might have heard from a family member or a friend. And so they're usually, just having knowledge from that secondhand. That's not, you know, coming from anybody's book or any professional. It's just coming from somebody else's experience, and they're telling you about their birth story. But
mm.
I usually put in my notes blank canvas most of the time because it's like,
That
all
is
right, I'm gonna
good.
have to start from scratch. Okay. We're gonna have to go through the basics. We're gonna do Kinsey Keeper session 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because I can't skip anything right now. Okay. I need you to be filled in
Yes.
on it all. And it is a ton of information, but when I have a blank canvas client, again, they're usually just most of their um, knowledge is base level or it's surrounded by fear, whatever fear or anxiety they have
Mm,
towards birth, because of maybe what they saw on TV or again what they've heard from a friend. But yeah, so for
yes.
that, I if I hear anything like that, I'm blank canvas, blank
Yeah.
canvas.
And what would you say is the starting point? Because you said Kenzie Keeper 1, 2, 3. So like you have a
Yeah,
set of what. So what would you say is the starting point for a blank canvas?
and I also thought about that too, because like most of the time, believe it or not, doulas receive clients that are third trimester
Mm,
looking for a doula. Because half of the time, I find that, the first trimester, you're trying to figure out insurance, you're trying to figure out a provider, you're trying to figure out birth location type details, and you're not really prioritizing like that support system, which I feel should probably be the first thing, and then maybe we could tell into all the other specifics. But
yes.
oftentimes that's usually the way it goes. And then by the time you're in your second trimester, you're not really worried about a doula. At this time, you're worried about is it a boy or a girl? So you're waiting on the anatomy scan. So we get to the 20
Yes.
week mark and we get our anatomy scan. Oh, it's a boy, it's a girl. Okay, now I'm baby shower ready. Okay. And
Yes.
then then we start to think about things just a little bit. We might be searching or we might go to a fair or an event or something like that. But once we get in the third trimester, it's like, oh,
You're about to have a
I gotta get
baby.
it together. I gotta get it together. She said something about a doula. Oh yeah, because my baby daddy ain't been doing right, so I'm gonna need somebody there. And so let me look for this. Let me see what I could do. And then most of the time, we find the client, and even in our kids and keep program, like I said, it's not the same way that it used to be. But now we've had to put in a protocol. We're like, look, you got to be between 10 and 34 weeks. If you
Yeah.
are 34 weeks and beyond, then we ain't gonna have no time to have sessions and get to the meat of things, because what if you have your baby early? What if
Mm,
some things shift down the line and maybe you're not compatible with this doula or whatever the case may be. We need some time. So even 34 weeks is a stretch, but
yeah.
that's what we've found just works because it gives us enough time to connect with that client. But most of the time, and even other birth workers that I connect with, like it's usually like they secure them third trimester. We're talking 30
Mm.
weeks and beyond. There's some repeat clients that will text you and they 36 weeks talking about, can we do this again? And you're like,
So you find
nigga.
that they're coming to you pretty late and they're a blank canvas pretty late. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have
Mm-hmm.
a lot to cover in a
And
short amount of
yes,
time. Yeah.
yes. And I sit there sometimes and I'm like, what you was doing all this time, man? But
Yes.
I think that we need more awareness around that prenatal preparation, because when you do, because honestly, like, what do you do during pregnancy? Nothing. Sleep, probably.
Yeah.
And maybe you're battling some sickness or something, some symptoms. But for the most part, you have like opportunities. I'm not gonna say you have time because everybody's scheduled to move, but you have
Yeah.
opportunities to really be intentional about that preparation,
Yeah.
and I don't feel like there's enough awareness around that. But I also feel like there's still a nice chunk of our community that still doesn't know what a doula is,
Yeah.
because I still have, I work at a pregnancy center, and I still get clients now that they're like, I heard of a doula. Oh, okay. Oh, so you're okay. I heard of a doula, but like, what exactly is it again? And
Yeah.
I still get those, and it's okay. That means we're growing. People are starting to hear the word a little bit more, but it still needs to be more awareness
Yeah.
around it for sure.
That reminds me that in general, I think a lot of women, if they have heard doulas, they just assume that a doula is for, like you said in the beginning, like a certain kind of birth. So, like, maybe a
Hmm.
doula is for like home births or like, a
A
natural,
midwife.
yes, all
Hmm.
of that. So they think it comes along with that, which often it does, but it doesn't,
Hmm.
it's not exclusive to that. And so if
Right.
they're probably going the typical medical, like hospital route, they're not even like, it's not on their radar, like they're not even thinking about that. But
Hmm.
that makes me wonder, what would you say the percentage of mothers out there, like what are their birth location and provider preferences?
Being at the center and being able to work with other organizations, like not just pregnancy centers, but like centers that support pregnant women, um, I do find that fear is still a very huge variable for
Mm,
pregnancy and birth. And oftentimes it is assumed that hospital is the way to go, place to be. And there are not enough providers that are informing their patients. I hate to use that word, but they are informing their patients um, about doulas and about community organizations that they can benefit from and just other resources that can help them fill in the gaps, right? But
mm-hmm,
I do see that because there is still a lot of fear, there's a huge crowd that's going to hospitals just in case.
mm, just in
There's
case.
not, right, just in case something happens.
Mm-hmm,
And um I have been able to connect with some clients at the center where, they had this thought like, I really want to have a home birth. Like, this is what I've always thought about. But I figure I'm supposed to go to an OB. And I have to break it down for them like, well, you don't have to. If that's what you are feeling in your intuition, follow that. Find out
mm,
how you can do that. And I feel like I've had to even, you know, bring it to these pregnancy centers to put more options on their referral list. You know,
mm,
I've had to add the local birth centers on the referral list, and I've had to, make it known to the clients there that this is an option for you in
yeah.
case nobody told you. And even if it's just a thought in your mind, to know that this is an option and that it's available, it's what can make the difference in the awareness that's out here. Because even if you don't take advantage of it for yourself, maybe you can tell your best friend, or maybe you can tell your
Mm-hmm,
cousin, and she might be, the type of person that's like, okay, this is my first time. I want to do it this way because she said, I don't know, and I see how all of these births turned out, and so it can make the difference for the next one.
mm-hmm,
But that's what I've noticed. But as far as like percentage wise, yeah, out of 100% of the births, we're still in the 80s, 90s that are birthing in the hospital. And even with clients that I've supported, like with childbirth education, like I come across like, I'm gonna say like 5% of the clients that I serve that come to me and they're already looking for a birth center, or they're
mm,
already knowledgeable about a midwife. Like 5%, I would say, because again,
yeah.
it has to be something that is either like a lifestyle that you live, like maybe like a lot of the women that are already looking for a birthing center, they already live a certain lifestyle, like maybe they're a
Mm-hmm,
gardener, or they're vegan, or they're crunchy, if you will, so
yeah.
they're already
Yes,
along
yes.
this line, so it makes sense for them to go that way, right? But for the vast majority, like we're all still, we're in a monopolized society. So it's like, okay, we go get a Chick-fil-A, and we go watch the Marvel movies, and we do X, Y, and Z, and we birth at the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
There's
what
two
it is.
things that come in mind, and like the kind of like the direction that I'm going with the Rooted Mama is that I am kind of focusing more on the mindsets of a mother that will be beneficial, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain kind of mindset that you need, and I'm leaning that way because what I find is that you could learn all this information, like your doula can teach you a bunch of information. You go to childbirth classes, like
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, TikTok, whatever, and store all of this really good information about pregnancy, birth, breastfeeding, and beyond. But if you don't have the wisdom or like the ability to really take that information and do with it what you should, it doesn't actually
Yes.
matter. And that kind of like
Right.
stems from my own experience. So, like, I was the 5% that was already interested in the alternative. And I feel like the reason why we didn't have the birth that we wanted was because I really didn't trust my intuition. Like I was not in tune with my body the way that I could have been, and like I didn't have the confidence, right? And it really came down to wisdom, like just knowing
Mm-hmm.
that no one knows my body more than I do. Of course, we had
Mm-hmm.
like the redemptive birth with my second, but that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of what I figured out. And also, like, when I talk to other mothers who are mothers of multiple, so like they had this encounter the first time, and then the second, third, fourth, now they're making different choices, and it's because of
Mm-hmm.
wisdom. So I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I've shifted the mentality and like the goal of this whole movement to focus more on getting mothers or women who aren't mothers yet but future mothers to start to get in the mindset of really trusting themselves, tapping into intuition, building up self confidence, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to seek information, take it
Right.
in, but then also apply it, right? Because that's
Right.
where things are missing. So the
Right.
barrier number one is that they don't even have access to the information. That's what you're saying. They often don't even
Exactly.
have access. But if they do, now the next barrier is being able to really believe that what you take in can be manifested in real life, right? Like you
Absolutely.
can.
Absolutely.
Um, but a big part of this, so you're talking about the fear and the high percentages of hospital birth. And I know that there are women that listen in who are pregnant right now and have said, I'm going to the hospital just in case. I wanted to spend a lot of time on your experience with hospital births. And it's not to scare anyone or anything like that, but I just think it's important to have someone who it's not just your birth, right? Like that's one thing. If you
Mm-hmm.
talk to like your sister or your cousin or
Right.
something and they're
Right.
telling you their birth, but you are in a unique position where you've experienced many births and they're objective because they're not like a
Mm-hmm.
family member or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could
Mm-hmm.
spend some time talking about kind of what you see, and it doesn't even have to be just the birth, but even like the prenatal care and stuff that women are receiving.
You were saying, like having the confidence comes from the experience or the wisdom, and I think that that's one of my approaches as well, because I do feel like it's mind over matter. You know, as above here, it will be below here, and at the end of the day, like I have grown in my practice to realize like I can't make her do a certain thing. I can't really save you, and that's one thing that I want for any potential mom. I had to say potential mom, like potential
Future mom.
future mom, any future mom, or you know someone who's expecting right now, like, and they're thinking about getting a doula. Don't go getting a doula because you're trying to be saved or you're trying to
Mm,
save yourself from these disparities, because that's not what it is. Because at the end of the
yes.
day, I am not you. I am not in your head. I can only share the information with you with the hopes that it will help to build your own confidence and allow you to believe in yourself, because I believe in you, because I know that birth can be smooth, birth can be undisturbed, and it can be, you know, positive and not have all these complications, um, especially when it's not interfered with
Mm,
medically. But I am not the one that's having the baby.
Yes.
Okay. And I say this in the beginning when I introduce myself and I tell people about my birth experience. I was a doula before I became a mom, right? And when I was just freshly out there, no labor experience of my own, I'm like telling them, like, I believe in you to do this because I see it. Like, I've seen it
Yes.
happen. And so if I've seen it before, I can see it again. And
Mm-hmm.
all it takes is that mindset and that thought of confidence. You have to know that you are capable of doing this, not just
Yeah.
believe it, because believing, there's a little lie in there that you could be telling yourself, right? But you need to know that you can do this. You need to know that God created your body to get the baby out. You have to
Mm.
know that birth is inevitable, right? So the same way that, yes, it's a miracle that your baby is in your body and it made it to the uterus. It's a miracle that you're going to give birth, but there's always divinity around that. And if you can't trust the divinity within you, then this birth experience is going to unfold however your mind allows it to.
Mm.
Because in the back of that mind, if you feel like you're gonna ask for that epidural, you will. If in the back of
Yes.
the mind you feel like you're gonna have a C-section, you will. If in the back of your mind you feel like I'm gonna have to be transferred to the hospital, you will. That's where it goes. And
Yes.
I can't fix the back of your mind. Okay. I'm only here helping you. I'm trying, but I can't change that for you. So I just wanted to touch on that really quickly. But just in
You answered my question.
like
I literally had a question that said, "Can doulas save women?" Which I already know
cannot,
the answer to.
cannot.
But that often is like being positioned, especially when it comes to like black
Mm-hmm.
mothers with the
For
maternal
sure.
crisis. There's all these articles now where they're like, doulas can do this. It's like, wait, wait, wait. Doulas can
Mm-hmm.
do a lot. They are fantastic. But when we start to put them in this savior box, it's
Mm-hmm.
very dangerous because
Mm-hmm.
women are going
Dangerous.
into it like literally believing that a doula, they just get a doula and do nothing else, like that is going to solve the problem. And
Right.
it's not. So I'm
Right.
so thankful
It's
that
the
you said
doula and
that.
do nothing else part for me. Because
Yeah.
the doula, you can't get a doula and do nothing else because the doula is going to encourage you to do the work that it's going to take for you to fix that thought in the back of your mind, right? And so we are going to encourage you to be
Yeah.
more mindful and use more practices and step outside of your comfort zone. But that's what birth is all about. It's about being vulnerable, getting outside of your box and transforming into someone completely new, literally. So
Yeah.
um with that, I just really I want to stress again to those that are future moms and that are currently expecting but thinking about securing a doula. Don't do it if you think the doula is going to save you from a C-section or save your life or save you from the epidural, because at the end of the day, we won't. We can't. And now I will say there are
Yeah.
some births that I've attended where the clients, and I would blame the clients too, like the people who have experienced positive journeys from having a doula, for why the media has deemed us these saviors, because it's the reviews that you get sometimes. Like, I have
Yes.
clients that will say things like, Kelly, I wouldn't have been able to do it without you, and it was because of you, and da da da. And I'm like, no, ma'am. And I say, I love that you think that I did all of that, but you did all of that. I
Yeah.
was just here reminding you that you could. That's it.
Yeah. You like push it.
Okay.
You're like the person behind the marathon runner who's just like running with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like making sure that they don't
Yes.
collapse. And
Yes,
but they
exactly.
but they
Holding.
are the one
Yes.
running the marathon.
Right.
Yes.
I'm there with the water. I got you. But keep
Yeah.
going, okay? And if you see how you made it to the finish line, that's all you. And I
Yeah.
just again just want to stress that part. But as far as like the hospital experiences, so when I came into the birth world again, I came in alignment with a lot of single moms that were, that had nobody that was going to be at their birth, right? And my first like experience with hospital births, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I was one that also thought that doulas were only exclusive to out of hospital births. And then when I went to my training, I learned a little bit more, obviously. But even in my training, I felt like the training was encouraging me to fall in line with the standard operating procedures, right? Of whatever the hospital is that I'm at supporting this mom. And that it just kind of made me feel away because in a sense, like I do feel that workers are radical workers because we are kind of going against the grain a little bit, especially with these hospital births, and encouraging her to do the opposite of what the Western medicine would encourage her to do, which she probably don't want the epidural. They want you to have the epidural. She don't want the belly birth, but we gonna find a reason to cut you open, okay? But in my experience, and I'm not trying to like throw shade on the hospitals at all. I do feel like, because believe it or not, I mean, look, believe it, know this, okay? A lot of our women are not good candidates for out of hospital births. Okay, that's because a lot of the preparation that we are, or lack of preparation that we're putting into our bodies pre-conception is leading to a lot of these disparities, right? And it's leading
Okay.
to those.
You have to talk about it. You have to talk because, okay, so I actually have a podcast episode that is going to be released after this conversation, so like after this one,
Okay.
where I'm talking specifically about this. I'm talking specifically for Black women, but
Mm-hmm.
I talk about this poor health going into it, and it doesn't necessarily even have to be like physical health. There's stress, there's
Mm-hmm.
other things too, but I
Yeah.
just feel like they're not in the right preparation when they
Mm-hmm.
come into pregnancy, and then
Mm-hmm.
that does set them up for complications down the line. And this is a motherhood preparation podcast, so please, I would love for you to talk about this, like that preparation part.
Yeah, and that's a huge component. I feel that that was that was a motivation of mine to be a birth worker initially. Like at first, I wanted to really talk to the teens. I was trying to talk to the teenagers who were just getting their periods, trying to figure out da 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 da. I wanted to tell you about ovulation and tell you about,
Yes.
nutrition and, help you to understand your body a bit more because I mean, naturally, I was just infatuated with, all things pregnancy and baby. But not every woman has that same infatuation, right? And unfortunately, I started to see like just these unfortunate scenarios where women would experience miscarriages that were trying to conceive, right? They're trying really hard to have a baby, but they're just doing the physical part to creating a baby, like having sex. Like I know I can do this, that's great, right? But maybe let's take it back a bit. Instead of putting ourselves through, unnecessary trauma trying to conceive a baby that's not able to stick in the womb, we need to figure out, okay, what is the root to this? Like, is it something going on with my body? Is it something going on with his? Is it something going on with our mental health? Let's dive into that. And I feel like it's so important to really analyze where you are physically, spiritually, mentally, before you decide to welcome another life here in this ghetto planet. Okay? You have to be
Yes.
intentional about it because if you are afraid of HG, if you're afraid, HD meaning like the severe morning
The
sickness for
morning
those
sickness.
that don't
Yeah.
know what that is, right? So having severe morning sickness, you're afraid of that, or if you're afraid of, having complications in your birth, or if you're afraid of preeclampsia or any of these, disparities that we have, especially as brown women, then you need to be trying to figure out your life and different lifestyle changes that you might need to implement. And one of the questions that I ask in my initial session with clients and in our Kids to Keeper program, we ask like, so what are some lifestyle changes that you've implemented since you've become pregnant? And this is how I find out, okay, how is she eating? Because half the time, most of them, they know they're not eating right. And they know this pregnancy is forcing them to eat a different way. Because maybe the baby
Yeah.
absolutely don't want no meat. The baby want all veggies, or maybe the
Yes.
baby don't want
Yes.
no milk, wants only water. Like, whatever the case may be. But, you know, there is a reason behind those questions. And that's because a lot of women don't even look at that part. But more specifically, I want to shed light on what brown women can do to prepare. And that's diving deeper into your womb health. Because I mean, that's where the baby gonna be at. And ultimately, if nothing else sticks with you from this spiel, then make sure that if you are planning to have a baby or you trying to have another baby, that you think about the environment that that baby is going to be in for 9, almost 10 months. And if that environment is toxic, if that environment is cloudy, if that environment is not conducive for life, then it can show up in different ways because epigenetics is a thing, right? Right. So it can show up in different ways. So I would encourage you to think about, okay, what environment am I going to give my unborn child?
That's good.
And you want to think about, okay, how are my periods? Do I have heavy periods? Do I have really bad cramps? Do I have da 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 da? So before I even became pregnant myself, like I said, this was a priority for me because I was unconsciously just intentional about this part, right? Because it was a passion. But I wasn't trying to conceive, okay, my son. He was a wonderful surprise. Okay. It wasn't a intentional intention, but it was like a
Yes.
unintentional subconscious thing that I was doing, right? Because I was mentally like I started to analyze my life when I became a birth worker because you get exposed to like all this health stuff, right? And I mean, I was okay. I had started becoming plant based and all of those things. And then I was like, okay, I'm doing good. I'm doing okay. Then I started to discover things like yoni steams and herbs and crystals and, I mean, eggs, the little yoni eggs. I started
Yeah.
to discover these things, right? And I realized, like, oh, I have to be prepared for my child that I'm claiming that I want to have at some point in this future, right? And that means that I got to know how to cook, number one, because at the time I was heavy on the fast food and heavy on eating out. And I didn't have any go to recipes for myself, right? So I started to, all right, let me just try to cook at home more because, like, I want to be able to cook my baby food and do all the little cute little purees and stuff for my child, right? And I'm just thinking this. This is just random, right?
Yes.
Because I'm now around other women who are having babies. I'm analyzing these things. So I'm like, okay, I can eat better. I'm cooking more now. Then I started to think like, okay, I need to be able to take care of myself. I don't want to be that kind of mom that just gets lost in motherhood. I want to know who I am, remember who I am, and have hobbies and stuff. So I had hobbies, but I was like, let me get a little more mature with my hobbies, more grown woman with my hobbies. So I started journaling more. I started to, meditate and do breath work. I started to be more consistent with yoga. It was a practice, but I was like, okay, let me do this for real.
Wow.
And in that, I was introduced to yoni steams and I started yoni steaming regularly. And I actually was already plant-based because I was trying to crack the code of my cycles because my cycles were really bad. Like I was cramping and heavy bleeding and all these different things. And I, did my exams and nothing was showing up in them. So I'm just trying to figure out like, what is it? And it boiled down to how I was eating. And so I was already, plant-based and making those moves. But when I started to be introduced to yoni steams, girl, all of a sudden I stopped cramping. I'm like, oh, I have a cycle that came and
Wow.
I didn't even know. I'm like, oh wait,
Yeah.
I started my cycle day, y'all. And It don't feel like it. but you know, I was doing those things, and again, subconsciously and unintentionally, I was preparing my vessel for my child, right?
Mm.
And so now I'm fertile, I guess. And I'm like vibrating. My body's like, yes, we're ready to put a baby up in here. Come on, this is a perfect environment, right? Then boom, I got pregnant, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What? I didn't even know I could get pregnant." Like, yeah, I did, but I had dodged it for so long. I was like, "Okay." So now
Yes.
I'm pregnant, and I'm like, "Wow!" But guess what? In my pregnancy, no morning sickness. I low key forgot I was pregnant half the time. I was like, "Oh, I forgot." You know,
Yes.
I started realizing when I started showing, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
wasn't, you know, really affected by the hormonal changes that come with pregnancy, right? But a lot of
Yes.
women are. A lot of women can. Some of them, they're literally, their life literally shifts. Like they're drained because they're carrying a
Yes.
baby, and it should not be that way. Not not unless there's really some health concerns, right? But
Yeah.
naturally speaking, it should be a good chemistry between, even though you know,
Mm.
they're kind of like parasites in our body a little bit.
Yes.
It should still be
God-given
a like a
parasites.
right, God-given parasites. It should still be like a symbiotic relationship going on. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? And so it
Yeah.
shouldn't be to the point where you're literally drained and you're lifeless carrying
Mm.
life.
You're touching on all the questions that I had for you ahead of time, and I love it. But you kind of address something that I think is a big, it's important. So when you talked about seeing all these other women because you were working as a doula, but also I know
Mm-hmm.
you have your family members and stuff too. So you had all of
Mm-hmm.
this exposure, and specifically you said you were like really into the woman thing. Like you're into the cycles,
Mm-hmm.
you're into all of that, like women's health. And so you
Mm-hmm.
were more aware and paying
Mm-hmm.
attention to the things that women have going on. So like you said,
Yeah.
you were like, "Oh, I don't cook a lot." And but I'm seeing these other women when they're having these babies, they're making purees for their babies or like whatever. And so
Yes.
you're storing
Mm-hmm.
all of those things too. And what I find is that women of our age group, like childbearing age, they are
Mm-hmm.
not having those experiences or they're just not paying attention
Mm-mm.
to it in that way. And so
Right.
that it's so important to be in community with other women. And this is why doulas can't save, right? Because you go and find this person
Right.
at the last part of your pregnancy, but up until this point, you've paid no attention to your sister in any real way, or
Right.
you've paid no
Right.
real attention to any other women in your life to know those details of like what was
Right.
going on with them. So, how can you prepare? How can you go into
Mm-hmm.
motherhood? You're not going to go in there prepared because most of the
Mm-hmm.
time you're just like off in regular lady land, not paying
Right.
attention to the parts that are important for, right? Like not paying attention to the parts that
Right.
are important for motherhood. Like we're
Right.
ignoring our cycle, or doctors are just like giving birth control to just get rid of the
Right.
cycle. Like, go ahead.
Society has literally normalized the disconnect from ourselves. And
Yes.
so, like you said, like it's a pill for that, right? It's a pill for that. You got cramps, okay? Well, let's put you in some birth control so we can stabilize. Da 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 da. Or you got acne, okay? It might be some birth control that can help that. But we also got some creams that you can use that'll solve that or
Yes.
whatever. And you know, if you are heavy bleeding, that's just a part of periods. If you're cramping, that's just a part of periods. And it wasn't until I was like, no, like it, like honestly, like you said, I was like looking into my sisters, and I realized my sister, they didn't really
Mm-hmm.
have cramps. I'm like, so what you doing? What are you doing that's causing you not to have cramps? Because I need to know the secret, and that's what
Yes.
prompted me to, you know, look into my life with more intention. But honestly, I do feel like it is a like a societal norm that like they have allowed us to disconnect from our wounds. And a lot of birth workers are here and they're
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of radical work to get you back into being in tune with your womb. And again, like I said in the beginning,
Yes.
like think about the environment that your unborn is going to be in.
Birth workers will like try to it's not their, they have to like abruptly get you back into connection with your divine feminine self. Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't we're so disconnected, and then you become pregnant and it's like a force, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to be forced back into your body. You have to be forced back
Mm-hmm.
into paying attention to all these little things that
Right.
you've been
Right.
ignoring or never knew. Let's be honest, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
you never knew about your body. So
True.
okay, so moving past that, so that was really good. I think that's super important to focus on, because we are so disconnected. And then when we're trying to conceive, women are trying to conceive, they're having trouble. They don't know why. They're like looking for IVF or like other stuff when it could just be like the food you're
Mm-hmm.
eating, right? Like it
Right.
could be as simple
Literally.
as the food, that which is not simple, but like it could just be as simple as your diet. And also, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, you were kind of mentally and spiritually aligning yourself with motherhood by getting those
Right.
hobbies, cooking more food. Like all of those things are important. And if we're not doing
Mm-hmm.
those things, this is what makes the transition into motherhood so much harder.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I I can say that loud all day. And one thing that Maternity Journey hopes to continue to accomplish is bringing more awareness to that. One of the events that we've hosted is a walk for change, and it's basically an opportunity for anybody. It's not just people that are pregnant, but anybody who's a family, wants to have a family, can come and learn about these radical changes that need to be made in our community, but so that they are more aware about where our climate is right now, and where our women are right now, and how we can support them in this space and meet them where they are. And one of the very first walk for change events that we had, it was so it was so divine, because like people were just, and this was during COVID actually, like the very beginning stages of it. They hadn't shut everything down just yet, but people were walking to the park like just randomly. They were like, "What's going on over here? What's happening?" And there were women that were in their 20s that were interested in what we were talking about, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, and I've always wondered about this, and I've always questioned that." And
Mm,
it's like, this is what these moments are for, because at the end of the day, you know we have to like massively spread this information, so that, again, like I said, even if it's not her that's pregnant right now, that we can shift her focus and get her to tune into her confidence. It might be her cousin, it might be her best friend,
mm,
but at least we're making strides towards this change and this narrative that we have around womb health, around preconception, around labor and birth, around postpartum. So, that's one of the, again, like the intentions for Maternity Journey. We have a mission to be able to change that narrative, but I think it comes from,
mm.
it has to stem from you actually caring about your body, though. Because we can spread the
Yeah.
news and we can talk to people about it, but it can go in one ear and out the other. But if you actually care about your body, you actually care about the environment of your unborn child, then this information is going to settle, and it's going to be natural for you to share it with the next woman. And that's how we're going to be able to
Mm.
change the narrative.
I just wanted to wrap that part up by saying, and I think you agree, that you the fears that a lot of women have going into the birth specifically, like the
Mm-hmm.
complications and stuff that can come up in birth, it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like what you're saying is that a lot of these complications can actually be prevented by just being a healthy person, right? So, like, if you go into pregnancy as a fairly healthy woman, right, your chances of some of those major, like, specifically like diabetes and like you said, high blood pressure, eclampsia,
Mm-hmm.
your
Mm-hmm.
risk is way lower by going into
Mm-hmm.
it as a healthy woman, right? Like, it's not like it
Right.
doesn't come up with perfectly
Right.
healthy women, but if you're
Right.
going into it with, maybe you already have high blood pressure, right? Like, maybe you already have these things
Yeah.
before you even get pregnant because of your
Right.
health. Of course,
And
you're going to
oftentimes
have
that's the
a
case.
harder time. Yeah.
Right.
So
And
I just wanted to kind of like wrap that up and like really emphasize the importance of the health before you even get pregnant, because then you don't necessarily even have to have some of those worries and like, I need a doctor and I need a hospital because they're going to have to save me in
mm-hmm.
case something goes wrong. Like, you don't even have to have
Mm-hmm.
that level of fear when you
Mm-hmm.
already know you're going into it with a fairly healthy body and a healthy baby.
Right. Right. This is true. This is true. And I would love to study that more. I'm a sociologist at heart too, so it's like as I've practiced, I have picked up on those on seeing those comparing that type of world, meaning like, okay, how are the women that are plant-based versus the women that are not, and how are the women that have self-care practices versus the women that do not. And truthfully, I see a lot more complications with the women that don't have the healthiest lifestyle preconception, that don't have self-care habits, um, that they fall in that category. But ultimately, I do feel like,
Mm,
no, it's not saying that you are exempt from any complications, but it does significantly reduce the likelihood of these things coming up for you in your birth space. So, again, if you care about your unborn child, even if it's an unplanned pregnancy, if you care about the fact that one day you might have a child, or if you care about the fact that you don't want to have fibroids or cysts or having all these other complications or having a hard
mm,
menopause, if for those women who are not necessarily trying to have a child, right? Even if that's the case, be intentional about how you take care of yourself, and that's on a physical, mental, and spiritual level, because
mm.
it'll save us. That will save us. That is what will save us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. This is good.
I told you I needed this because I've kind of been in a space where I'm like, okay, I'm experiencing a lot of newness. So, processing all of that, I needed something to kind of distract me and remind me of why I'm here, remind me of my why. I always have to refer back to it. But I appreciate you for allowing my voice to travel in your in your project, and I hope, I
Yes.
trust that whoever is listening to this message, that it gets to them to a point where it inspires them to share this with somebody else, because that's what's going to help
Mm.
us change this narrative. Okay. But that's
Yes,
all I
ma'am.
have. I
Yes, ma'am.
For the Houston mamas, be on the lookout for all things Maternity Journey, because we are reopening our applications. Y'all been hitting us up asking, and I'm like, okay, we're coming back. We coming back. We wasn't not coming back.
Yes.
It's just, y'all making us come back a little sooner than what I was hoping. But it's okay. And I also want to say
Yes.
for the birth workers as well, we have community for you. To be able to connect, and even if you're not in Houston and you're a doula and you're listening, you can join our virtual tea times for the birth workers, so that you can also, have a community of like-minded women. So those are just some things that Maternity Journey offers, and along with the other events that we do. So follow us on Instagram at Maternity Journey. And yeah, that's all I got.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all
Thank you,
I
Kelli.
got. Of course.
Thank you for tuning in to The Rooted Mama. I hope today's episode left you feeling inspired, supported, and a little more rooted in your own motherhood journey. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with another mama or mama-to-be. Remember, motherhood is a journey best shared, so let's keep growing together. Until next time, stay strong, stay supported, and stay deeply rooted.